Welcome back to part 2. By 1999, the number of subjects in the HSC had increased substantially, including all of these so-called 3-unit subjects. There was a big shake-up at the end of the 90s. This is the McGaw report, which was a far-reaching document that brought about many changes, perhaps most importantly, reducing the number of 3-unit subjects, in which the 3rd unit was no more difficult than the other 2. During that time, all subjects got a rework and a rewrite, except, for some strange reason, the calculus courses managed to dodge that bullet, and all they did was change their name. As a result, these outcomes needed to be added to the calculus-based courses. They were never a great fit. As a result of the McGaw report, it became possible for Year 12 students just to do 10 units. I think this led to many students dropping maths because on paper it seemed to be their worst subject. At this stage we lost Maths in Practice and Maths in Society, and they were replaced with a single course called General Mathematics. This was the first time in New South Wales that students were permitted to use a calculator more powerful than a scientific calculator. It was decided, however, that it would not be compulsory to use a graphics calculator, and students were told that the examination would be calculator neutral, whatever that means. Some of my students went to the trouble of purchasing one of these. It took them a while to get used to this clunky piece of hardware. Some thought they were great, and some decided it wasn't worthwhile. From 2001 to 2013, the total number of students doing the extension courses remained fairly constant, although the pool of students grew due to population growth. And so, as a percentage, the amount of students doing the extension courses actually fell. As a raw number, there was a dreadful decline in the number of students doing 2-unit alone, from 14,500 down to slightly less than 11,000. The general maths numbers remained fairly constant, but the big rise was in the number of students doing no maths at all, which has climbed to about 17 to 20% of the Year 12 candidature. If we take a step back even further, it looks even worse. Back in 1992, we had over 20,000 students doing the 2-unit course alone, plus another 14,000 doing the extension courses. And finally, in 2006, a wide-scale review of Stage 6 in New South Wales brought about these new syllabus documents. But then, out of the blue, it's time for a national mathematics curriculum. Started in November 2008 with something called the framing paper. In the framing paper, we were told that the goal would be to reduce the extent to which teachers feel the need to rush from topic to topic. Have you felt that yet? As a result of the Australian curriculum, New South Wales decided to shelve those documents that they spent so much time creating. Meanwhile, the people from ACARA were working on 4 curriculum documents called Specialist Mathematics, Mathematical Methods, General Mathematics and Essential Mathematics. Possibly these weren't the greatest choices of names because many people in New South Wales recognise these as being names used in other states, and that didn't go down too well. Seemed to be okay in Western Australia. Western Australia were happy enough to take those 4 curriculum documents and more or less use them with a few extra things thrown in for the strugglers. Similar things happened in other states. Eventually, in May of 2012, General 1 and 2 were implemented at very short notice, and hence the first textbooks that came out were very rushed and contained numerous problems. The General 1 and General 2 contained strands, as you can see there, and in Year 11 there were 2 focus studies called Communication and Driving. The driving proved to be very popular with teachers and students. The communication, not so much. The digital download and file storage topic didn't become very popular at all. In Year 12, General 2 had 2 focus studies. General 1 had 4 focus studies. General 1 was a board-endorsed course, not board-developed, so that caused problems because students needed 6 units of board-endorsed courses and some students wanted to do others not General 1. There was no HSC examination and there was no ATAR contribution, so in some schools it was difficult to convince students to do General 1. At the same time, there were a few changes to assessment, including this policy about school-based assessment, that 50% of the marks should be reasoning and communication. My impression is that a lot of schools failed to embrace this initiative. There were some changes to the HSC examination in the calculus courses, 10 multiple choice questions. This proved to be very unpopular with teachers. At the end of 2013, MANSWA conducted a survey. Over 1,000 teachers responded to the survey. One of the reasons for doing this was to see if it was true that students were choosing general maths or no maths for the HSC, even though they were capable of doing something more challenging. Slightly more than half of the teachers agreed with that statement. And when they were pressed to say, why is this happening? Well, there's the top 3 reasons, among a very long list of reasons. During this period, MANSWA successfully lobbied BOSTES for a formula sheet for the calculus students. This became known as the reference sheet and was used for the first time in the 2016 HSC examination. And during this time, we also learnt that our Minister for Education, along with all the other ministers, had agreed that the senior secondary Australian curriculum documents should be used as a common base for the development of state and territory senior secondary courses. So the syllabus development process began again, and draft writing briefs were constructed and open to consultation. At that stage, we were told that the mathematics general syllabus wouldn't be changing very much and that the focus studies would be retained. A little later, the draft syllabuses were released and the focus studies had gone. MANSWA constructed a 57-page response to the draft syllabuses. It's available on the MANSWA website. Around about the same time, BOSTES started informing the general public about new syllabuses on the horizon. In this media release, they claimed that 90% of students in Year 12 in 2016 studied one or more STEM courses. I thought that seemed a little high, so I made some inquiries about where they got that figure from, the 90%. Turns out they included students in all of these courses: General 1 Maths, Senior Science, and Life Skills Maths. As a result of a review of the Board of Studies, BOSTES became NISA in January 2017. So the future is a little clearer than it was this time last year, but there are still many things to fall into place. This one came by surprise, although it turns out it has pretty much been copied from something that's been happening in Western Australia. That Year 9 students who do not achieve Band 8 or higher in NAPLAN, numeracy and literacy will somehow need to demonstrate that they have improved in those areas before the end of Year 12. Otherwise, they will be in danger of not receiving an HSC. So we're still on track for Year 11 2018 and the HSC of 2019 for students in the new Senior English, Maths, Science and History HSC courses. And we've been promised some redesigned HSC questions that will emphasise understanding rather than memorisation. So the future has arrived somewhat, although some people were not happy with the calculus courses, and NISA decided to have another round of consultation in the first couple of months of 2017. That is now closed, and we are awaiting to see what happens next. Looks like there's no more prelim in HSC. It's back to Year 11 and Year 12. We have some new names. Thank goodness the mathematics course now has a name other than mathematics. It's going to be Mathematics Advanced, and General is gone, and we have Standard, which is probably a good idea because we already had 2 different versions of General, plus there was the Australian Curriculum General, so it would have been rather confusing to maintain another version of General. But Mathematics Standard is set in concrete, ready to roll. That's all, folks.